Mike Florio, NBC Sports Pro Football Talk, on what 2024 means for Deshaun Watson and the Browns.
Bottom line, though, is they have to get more from Deshaun. They paid him so much, fully guaranteed. They could pay him and not play him, but who really wins if you do that? This is all about getting the most out of Deshaun in 2024, and there's going to be pressure on everyone to make that happen. I don't want to say Kevin Stefanski is going to be on the hot seat, but I don't know what happens. If Deshaun, I thought in 2023, if Deshaun Watson goes wire to wire and the Browns are just a failure, maybe they'd try to find a new coach for 2024. If this year coming up, Watson stays healthy and he's just not good enough, I don't know what that means. I don't know if they would just bite the bullet for the final 2 years of the Watson deal. I don't know if they would try to engineer a way to void the guarantees and move on. I don't know what they'll do. But this is the year that Watson's got to step up or step off for the Cleveland Browns, because they learned they could win without him, and I feel like they're not going to be inclined to tie their own hands in a situation where they could just move on to a younger quarterback, a cheaper quarterback, and just deal with the cash charge and the cap charge and just move on from Deshaun Watson.
Fred, Deshaun Watson was 4-1 or 5-1 as a starter. It's not like they didn't win. And this surprised me. He took more snaps at quarterback than anybody else. Now, do they need to be better on offense with him? Absolutely. But the last time he was on the field, I think he was 13 of 14 in that second half against the Ravens, led a comeback in Baltimore against the Ravens with a broke shoulder on one leg against a team that is playing for the AFC Championship game.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the national narrative still is Watson is disliked and the Browns, are a failure with him. It seems like, and I didn't see that. I saw him in training camp. Obviously, never really got on track. I think it's more of the health situation. He's got to learn to slide and take care of himself this year. That, to me, was the biggest downfall of Lamar Jackson the last 2 years. And then this year, he figured out how to stay on the field, and he's going to be probably an MVP. When Watson is playing, we didn't see the numbers that Flacco did, but I don't know why they can't run that offense with him. I mean, he's got the arm Flacco has, but he's got the mobility factor. So I think it was more of a case of staying on the field and the starting and stopping. I mean, we saw him in the Titans game, the third game. He threw for 289 yards, really was 329, but, they said Cooper stepped out of bounds and that took away a 40-yard touchdown. But even with that, he didn't play the last half of that fourth quarter. So he really looked like he was on his way. Then we find out middle of the week that he's got something with his shoulder, and then he doesn't play the next week. And the next month, they messed around with that. Would he, wouldn't he? And he tried to go against the Colts and couldn't. And then they sat him down. He came back against the Cardinals, looked pretty good. And then he goes to the Ravens game, and little do we know, he gets, the broken bone in his shoulder and a high ankle sprain. As you mentioned, he ended up actually 14 of 14 in leading that come-from-behind win. And that's really the last time the Ravens lost, unless you want to count that Steelers finale when they rested everybody. They looked well, and they looked like they were in position. Then we find out he's out for the season. So, yeah, it's more of a start, stop. We never really saw a continued situation. So I think more than anything, he's just got to stay on the field. He's got to be healthy. He's got to get healthy. And he's got to quit thinking about, and if there is any pressing to him, he's got his money whether he plays or not. He saw what Joe Flacco did. You got to believe that the guy can perform, at a close level to what Joe Flacco was doing. I mean, he's got more athleticism. He's got all the way around. I just think it's staying on the field. Like I said, I think he was on his way after that Titans game. We won't know. And then the Ravens game, he was I didn't have any fault in those things other than he might expose himself to injury more by his style. And maybe you look at the Joe Flacco book, stay in the pocket, run only when you have to, but use your arm, throw the ball deep, spread everything out, use your weapons, Cooper, Njoku, and so forth. So I don't agree with Florio at all on that they're looking to move on. Andrew Berry's been very steadfast. They believe Deshaun Watson is the franchise quarterback. Yes, they have to pay him, but they're pretty smart in how to figure things out. And if they were done with him, they would figure out how to move on and move around.
Yeah, I don't think they're anywhere near done with him, without question. And to your point, it's really hard to get into a rhythm offensive. You got 11 guys when you're in and out, and you know, he didn't start 4 games in a row. That's the problem. You know, there was no stretch of games where he played 4 consecutive games.